All right, just kicked off the recording. Hey everybody, I'm Jim Angel. I am a co-chair of SIG Docs. We're kicking off our weekly meeting, and today is August 10th, 2021, and it is 10:30 Pacific. Before we get started, are there any new contributors today that would like to introduce themselves? I see some faces or names I don't recognize, but if you're returning and it's just, maybe misconnected, no big deal. Glad to have you. Happy to see some familiar faces as well, and welcome. And as always, if there's any questions, feel free to put them in chat. Feel free to find us on Slack as well on the SIG Docs channel. A lot of friendly folks willing to help out. All right, moving on to updates and reminders. This week's PR Wrangler is Savitha, and next week's PR Wrangler is Brad Topol. And I want to say that Brad might be out of the office, so I'm going to confirm confirm next week with Brad, or at least make sure that we have coverage for the PR Wrangler shift. If not, I'll step in and take care of that. I said deja vu in the meeting agenda because I believe Brad was the PR Wrangler prior to this week as well. So double duty for Brad at the very least. So much thanks there. And as always, PR Wranglers, make sure you know your shifts. There's a link in the agenda. And let me throw the agenda in chat here, just for folks if they need to follow along. All right, moving on to the agenda. Release 122, it is complete. That is awesome. Congrats a lot to the release team, SIG Docs release team. It is no small effort. Everything gets caught on fire towards the end of release there. And I know we, per usual, had some issues with some of the reference generation docs. The release team did a knockout job at getting the release out the door, getting some of the, post-release issues resolved. And many thanks to Victor and the SIG Docs release team. The 123 is already kicking off for the release planning, and Jesse Butler is going to lead the SIG Docs release team. And I wanted to remind folks that the shadow application ends then the 13th of August, which is 3 days away. For those who aren't aware of what shadowing means in the context of a SIG release, what that is you're volunteering part of your time to work with the SIG Docs specifically on the release team for Kubernetes. And what that involves is reviewing docs, reviewing enhancements, reviewing features as they come in, and overall making sure that the release is a success. The bigger part of being a shadow is learning the kind of inner workings of what happens behind the scenes, as well as being able to see kind of, how the sausage is made when a release actually happens, when the site rolls over to a new version, when we cut new branches, when we synchronize those branches. There's a lot of technical processes that maybe is not so out in the open. They're definitely documented out there in the role handbooks, but I encourage folks, if they're interested in documentation or if they're interested in release tooling, make sure you check that out and apply to be a shadow. And Chris, I know you just were on the release team as a shadow. Do you have anything you'd like to add there?
It's, like you said, it's just a really good way to see how things are done. Basically, we get to see the enhancements that are coming in. We are assigned certain ones to track and to make sure that people, first open just a blank a PR and then fill it in by certain dates and get them done, reviewed by certain dates. That's kind of what our job was. But yeah, Victor did a great job. A lot of times he would just like fix things and, at times. So I didn't learn all the details I would like to have learned. So I might go back and do it again. But for the most part, it was a very good experience. I would go to some of the other meetings as well, the release team meetings, and just to understand how it all worked.
Yep, absolutely. And that's a great point too, is that part of the idea of using the shadow process is having folks that can stick around for multiple releases. And traditionally, the requirement to lead a SIG Docs release is that you've been around for at least 2 releases as a shadow. So it's not really a one and done thing. It's a little bit larger of a commitment, but it's structured in a way with multiple shadows. So if folks do have, as we know, life comes up, especially in days like today with the pandemic and everything. So we build it in a way we have a team to support each other as well as grow and evolve. And so it's a great opportunity for sure. And Tim, I saw you had your hand up there.
Yeah, my gadget's crashed, but never mind that. I was going to ask Chris about how much there is about your opinion, Chris, of the balance of technical versus people work in being a shadow.
Yeah, it doesn't look like they demand that we be technical, in that you basically are going to contact the technical people and make sure that SIG Docs has people to look at it, make sure the technical SIGs look at, whatever whatever they're contributing to the docs for the enhancements. But certainly, I mean, I would read them and I would review when I saw things, and it certainly doesn't hurt to be technical, but you don't have to be deeply technical to do the job. Is that what you were looking for?
Absolutely, and thanks for clarifying.
Awesome. Cool. Yep. Well, once again, congrats, Victor, and the release team for 122. I'm looking forward to 123. So moving on to the issues in PRs. I put one in here. I found last night. I saw Tim, you left a comment just before this meeting here, and I'm caught up on that. The reason why I brought this PR to attention, I'll send the link in chat here, is it's a conversation around technical accuracy, as well as, in my case, I think it comes down to understanding the information shared. And so let me summarize some context here. And then really what I'm looking at for is to have some sort of SIG Docs group consensus. I don't really have an opinion one way or the other. I would just like to not make the decision in a bubble and have us all aligned. And so with that, when we're talking about millicores and we're talking about CPU slicing in Kubernetes, usually what we're talking about is 1/1000th of a CPU. And so it doesn't matter if the CPU, what kind of, I guess, gigahertz, megahertz, whatever type of speed the core is, it doesn't really matter. It's going to be 1/1000th of that. That is what a definition of a millicore is for folks who aren't aware. And so in the documentation, they're trying to describe that in Kubernetes, the measuring unit is the time series of a millicore, which is 1/1000th of a CPU, not really to be concerned with the actual speed of the CPU. And I could be screwing up the explanation of it, but ultimately the wording as it is today says that this specific value is converted to its millicore value and multiplied by 100. The resulting value is the total amount of CPU time that a container can use every 100 milliseconds. A container cannot use more than a share of CPU time during this interval. And so this is a way for Kubernetes to bound your container processes to certain limitations for how much CPU access you can get. It's kind of quota management, resource management, et cetera. And what the proposed change is adding in that the actual value is the time in microseconds. So the change is requesting to say that it's converted to its millicore value multiplied by 100. The resulting value is the total amount of CPU time in microseconds. So really what this PR comes down to is the idea of adding the word microseconds is an extremely small change. But really what it comes down to, and why I bring this up, is to me as a reader who is not extremely deep into the inner kernel workings of Linux, it confuses me a little bit more when we start to talk about microseconds. And this is mainly me not being exposed to the word microseconds. I feel like milliseconds is very common in technology. We talk about ping milliseconds. And when I see microseconds, it just doesn't resonate with me as a reader. And so anyways, the conversation comes down to, it is technically accurate that the author and the PR and the change is correct in the sense that it is measured in microseconds, and adding a unit is completely factually accurate. The reason I bring this up is I feel like it might make the reading journey of a user maybe a little bit fuzzier in the case of readability, usability, information, I guess the information, the way it's laid out. And then Tim left a comment in this PR saying that, this information is really around Docker specifically, and the whole page could actually use a little bit of a refresher. So it's a little bit of expansion on the scope there. But let me pause there, see if there's any questions or any opinions. Once again, I'm struggling with this one because I see the technical accuracy of it, but I also see from my own personal viewpoint of it being a little challenging. So let me stop there. Any questions or comments?
It's okay to ask questions.
And I guess if there's no questions or comments, do folks feel strongly one way or the other? Once again, I feel torn on this one because it is technically accurate, while I disagree with the change from a reader, if that makes sense.
Hey,
No, go ahead, Chris.
oh, I was going to ask, what about other documentation, maybe some other open source documentation, or just some of the literature out there discussing, multi-core or multi-slice CPUs?
I was just going to comment on that because I was just looking in the Docker documentation, and they do use the word microseconds when they're talking about limiting CPU usage. Limit CPU real-time period in microseconds. So if this is a Docker section, it may not be a bad thing to just align with their wording, just so they don't think it's, so reader wouldn't think it's something different. So, but that's just at a quick glance. I have no deep knowledge of this topic.
Yeah, and I would agree with you, Chris. If it's in the Docker documentation, definitely it makes sense to carry it forward, but open for others, Tim?
I think the way to resolve, this PR is to accept it and then log an issue to say, oh my gosh, there's Kubernetes now since, I don't know, 1.2 or something supports more than one container runtime and more than one mechanism. And we don't cover that in this key page. And so I think there's an issue around making it much more neutral. I noticed, Jim, you actually were talking about how Kubernetes uses milliseconds as its default unit. It doesn't. The default unit in Kubernetes is one CPU.
Yeah, I'm sorry if I made that.
But the point is, if we're confusing SIG chairs, right, that's not to say that to criticize the SIG or the chair, it's to criticize the docs. And I think there is room to improve.
Yep, strong +1. Cool. I'm good with that result. So we'll merge this as is. Also, one thing I want to call out is this is a first-time contributor, so we definitely want to be a very welcoming and I guess what I'm trying to get at is when you're a first-time contributor, there's so much to learn. There's so much with SIG Docs that is just kind of, I want to say, tribal knowledge as you kind of get and work yourself through this. And so we really want to help these folks out that are first-time contributors. So strong +1. Let's merge this as is, and we'll open up an issue tracking kind of the wider scope. Cool. Thank you all.
Can I chip in and say we have 3 new people on the call?
Absolutely. Do these folks want to introduce themselves? And no worries if not. That's like Rajas joining us from Australia, the upside down video.
Hey, Rajat.
Nice. Cool. We'll move on. If y'all work out your AV issues, feel free to interrupt me. Really happy and glad to have y'all, and feel free to introduce yourselves in chat if not. So moving on to or I guess, is there any other issues or PRs folks would like to talk about? All right, moving on to the discussion section. So the first thing to cover is the chair transitions and rotations. I'm sure some of y'all may have noticed Paris has been stepping in and helping out quite a bit. What's going on here with SIG Docs, I'm not sure how much was shared with the team and what Paris has shared. I'm still catching up on some of the previous videos. But what's going on is right now the co-chairs are dealing with limited bandwidth, some availability concerns, and just general overall not being able to put in the work that is required of a co-chair, myself included. And so what we're looking for is folks that are willing to step up into the co-chair capacity, even at a shadow type level. We're really happy to train folks in more of a leadership type role. And what we're looking for is to really spread the workload out. I don't think SIG Docs is a community that can be led by a single chair. I don't think it can be led by 2 chairs even. I think we need 3 active chairs that can dedicate the time and the administrative work that is needed to keep SIG Docs, rolling as a successful org. With saying that, all the current co-chairs, including myself, are doing this on a voluntary basis. And so it makes it very challenging for work and conflicting priorities to kind of step in and step out. And it doesn't make it right or wrong. It just is the truthness where we are at today. And I really want to raise visibility here so y'all know what's going on. You're aware of what's happening. You see Paris helping out chairing some of these meetings. And it's not not a state of emergency or a state of a panic. It's really a state of awareness. And we want to make sure that folks are aware of what's going on. And it's been this way for quite some time, but we're kind of hitting that perfect storm of availability concerns and issues, as well as deprioritization for some of the co-chairs. So as we move forward, you might see some folks rolling off. You might see me kind of popping in and popping out as my availability is. I'm not going anywhere. I definitely love the community. I love sticking around. So as much time as I can volunteer, I will be still around. I just don't think it's fair to the SIG Docs community to be a co-chair in that administrative capacity and not be available full time, or at least in the time that I said that I would be available. For those that are interested, there is in the contributor guide a outline of what are the responsibilities of a co-chair. And in general, it's about 6 hours a week. That's the estimate. And it just kind of outlines some of the duties and responsibilities. The other thing I'll mention is there is tech leads as well as co-chairs, and a tech lead is more responsible for the technical operations of SIG Docs. Tim Bannister is one of our tech leads, and really focusing on the technical aspects of documentation, managing PRs, making sure that those lights stay on and any of the technical issues are resolved. I will say, Tim, you definitely do a little bit more blended into the co-chair area. I don't want to say you're exclusively a tech lead, but definitely glad to have you and glad to see you helping out.
If I could say a bit on that, Jim.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that's going around sort of Kubernetes governance, that exciting topic, is mandatory tech leads. So Jim, you and I haven't spoken about this, but there's an idea that instead of tech leads being an optional thing that SIGs can have, they become a thing that SIGs are expected to have. And so with that in mind, it has struck me that moving into being a formal chair doesn't actually solve, the staffing problem quite as well as it might. So, that's one of the reasons why I'm not immediately putting myself forward and saying that. And another one is that they are different roles. You don't have to become a tech lead and then become a chair, or become a chair and then become a tech lead. They have different responsibilities.
Yep, I was strong +1 that, and hopefully, Tim, you didn't get the impression that I was making that assumption that you're moving into a co-chair role. I believe that you're happy doing the tech lead role, and I was just complimenting the fact that you definitely have a little blurry gray spot there where you help us out a whole bunch. So really appreciate that. Any questions or comments around, what a co-chair does, what a tech lead does, how you get started, how you get involved, anything I can help out, answer, or clarify there?
Yeah, Jim, how would you get started? I mean, I've seen the sites you referred to in terms of what's required, but do you just start shadowing, or do you sign up and start shadowing, or?
Yeah, I think it would start with either a direct message to one of the co-chairs, one of the tech leads that you're interested. Happy to pull you into the conversation. A lot of it can be kind of self-appointed, stepping up and taking more of a leadership type role, approving more PRs. There is also the general contributor ladder. So folks who aren't even a Kubernetes member, it's not like you can just kind of jump straight to a co-chair. You might need to work yourself from a Kubernetes member to a reviewer to an approver, all the way to the co-chair. But that's not a reason to not put out the feelers of interest. If you're interested in doing any sort of co-chairing, as it is a requirement to officially be a co-chair, to be an approver and all that good stuff, it's a long cycle, and SIG Docs isn't going anywhere. And so shadowing and learning some of those fundamentals as you're growing in the community is not a problem at all either.
Good. Terrific.
Cool.
I want to say one more thing.
Go for it.
I meant to say I had this plan, but I can't program in Go, and that's going to surprise some people a lot. And I guess other people are going to go, "What's Go?" Kubernetes is basically written in Golang, and it's not a language I use on a day-to-day. I can't write in it. I can read it and spot bugs, maybe-ish, and I can use Go templates because, my gosh, the website uses those a lot. But I can't program in Go, and I want to emphasize that you don't need a lot of technical knowledge to be, a technical lead. You don't have to be able to use Kubernetes well. It does help. You don't have to be able to use Kubernetes at all to be an effective chair, so long as that you've got an ability to work with people who do. That's all I wanted to say.
No, excellent point. Appreciate it. Cool. All right. Well, in that case, let's keep rolling here. I don't want to bleed that topic out, but that's going to be kind of a reoccurring theme as we progress into the holidays here, and then things are slowing down. So the other topic here, I believe Paris brought this up. It sounds like there is general consensus that moving to maybe a biweekly Slack type stand-up or meetings would be acceptable. Does this ring a bell with folks?
Yeah, she brought it up.
Okay. And so I guess, are we just waiting on someone to make the decision or to make that transition?
Both.
Gotcha.
I think it would just the topic or the idea was just brought up, but no, nothing was decided.
Gotcha.
Hey, would that replace the meetings that we're having right now, or just sort of be augment what we do right now?
It would replace the meetings we have right now. So going back to the concept of kind of having a skeleton crew of co-chairs right now and different conflicting priorities, what it would do is reduce one meeting every other week. And so it'd be in Slack as opposed to this in person and this catch up. It would be a threaded meeting in Slack asynchronously. And it would just save, you know, the need to actually have dedicated time to meet every week. The slight challenge with it is we do have the APAC meeting the fourth Wednesday of after the fourth Tuesday of the month. That's kind of confusing how it's actually in the calendar, but basically it's the fourth Tuesday of the month that the APAC meeting happens. And I'm thinking that if we were to do bi-weekly, it's not so much in order. There's sometimes where a month will have 5 weeks before the APAC meeting, and sometimes it'll be 4 weeks. So it just depends. That might be a slight challenge, but I don't think it's a reason why we couldn't experiment with this. And the idea being is that having less face-to-face meetings would allow other folks to free up the time for other things, as well as with a shorter co-chair staff, it allows us to free up our time and our resources as well, and still be involved and active and keep the community moving. All right.
Yeah. With this, I know there's a blog meeting, sub-project meeting as well. That's every other week. SIG release, they alternates release engineering and SIG release meetings every Tuesday. Would we be able to alternate a SIG Docs and SIG Docs blogs sub-project meeting?
Yeah, I would be open for that. The one negative aspect of that would be you lose the regular sync with the docs team each week, but I don't know if that's necessarily a negative or not, but potentially you could do alternating docs and blogs each week. And then the week that it is blogs, you could have a Slack stand-up, for example, for SIG Docs.
Gotcha.
And I got, go ahead, Chris.
So Jim, that explanation there sounded, a little bit confusing. Could you just clarify? I'm missing that if we replace these all together and just do Slacks, or again, just clarification there.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry if I'm not doing a good job explaining this, but the idea being is right now we meet, and let's just simplify it. We'll take all the meetings out of the picture and we'll just focus on this specific SIG Docs meeting. We meet weekly on Tuesdays. And so the idea being is that we would move to Slack every other week. And so there would be a face-to-face in-person meeting, just like we're meeting today, but then next week it would be a thread in Slack, for example. And then the following week would be a face-to-face meeting, and we would update the official calendar to reflect that. And it would just be a matter of asynchronous updates versus all of us smiling in one single room and talking. Does that help out?
Okay. No, I could live with that.
Cool. All right, so let me think about that a little bit more. I would imagine we're gonna roll forward with that, hearing no major objections. Let me think a little bit and grok a little bit about how we can most effectively do this, but I'll take that AI to implement once we figure that out. All right, moving on to the, just as kind of announcements, I guess here, I should have an announcement section, is there is a contributor summit going on in the North America KubeCon in Los Angeles, and they just opened up a call for papers and registration is now open. For those that aren't aware, this is a 0-day event, and what that means is that KubeCon traditional will start on a Tuesday, for example, and so this event would happen on a Monday. For folks that are in person or virtual, it's going to be a hybrid event. And they're doing things a little differently this year, depending on what rooms they get and what spaces they have available. But in the past, what we've done is we've done doc sprints where we get a group of people together, either new contributors or existing, and we've ran through some existing problems, issues, or had usually a unified goal in mind to tackle. We've also done technical deep dives where I've gone through the actual code base, where we pull up a projector, we go through the actual code base, we say, here's how Hugo works, here's where the different aspects of the website interact with each other, here's how the sites are getting built. Once again, more how the sausage is made and allowing folks to ask questions and getting more into the background of SIG Docs, and that seemed to be pretty beneficial as well. So I'm putting it in the agenda. If anyone has any ideas they want to hear, they want to see, they want to get involved, feel free to reach out just directly on the SIG Docs main channel there, and we can definitely get something going on. I personally plan on attending in person if possible. That's a very big asterisk depending on what's going on in the world. And just know that the meeting is supporting also remote attendance. So if you do want to get involved and you don't plan on attending, there is the remote option still to be active. And then the other bullet I want to mention is the KubeCon talk. So our maintainer track got accepted, and I believe this came up in a previous meeting as well. I just wanted to keep it fresh in folks' minds that we need to have some of the content prepared and ready. I think it was August 27th, but I'll double check on the date. So it's coming up quick, and we have to make sure we have a plan there. Because what we did is we basically uplifted what happened at the last KubeCon for a SIG Docs deep dive, and we really need to refactor our content. I would imagine this is a great opportunity to call out new contributors and a great opportunity to talk about the current state of docs as far as the things I mentioned around co-chairs and contributor ladders. And I'd really like to see a call to action in the KubeCon talk around really supporting the documentation special interest group. I think we can make a really powerful talk around that. So more to come there. Any questions or comments or ideas around KubeCon?
Would this be like a recruiting effort, or would we be looking to, clarify or give some insight into how some of the processes are done?
So I would be open to both. It really just depends on what we want to, how we want to present the ideas and how we want to present the overall topic. But yeah, I would foresee it being both, and less recruiting, but more or less saying, here's the state of the world, here's how you get help, here's how you can get started. I guess it is recruiting. I just feel like we're not recruiting. To me seems like we're going out and plucking folks out of somewhere and getting them involved. But yeah, I don't know if I answered your question or not, but I think it could be up to us to decide.
Good enough.
Cool. All right, moving on to the API reference doc generation during releases. Ray, I'll kick it to you for context.
Yeah, so the past few releases, 1.20, 1.21, 1.22, part of the SIG Docs release team's handbook is to generate the reference guide. In the past several releases, there's been issues in generating the reference guide. And so what I propose is for those who have the tacit knowledge to generate these docs and the API reference guide as well, to update the role handbook with that. Because one, for the API reference guide, we just happened to get a PR from a GitHub user to update the API reference guide, but want to extract that tacit knowledge out so that those skills are transferable to the next team. And so that's pretty much it. Any comments or questions?
This is where I deny that I know Golang.
Yeah, there have been some issues with Go as well. And for 1.21, I personally spent like 3 days trying to get that script to work. Did not get it to work. So I could take this on personally, just to ping the people that I know of who do have the tacit knowledge, and ask them to document their steps, and we can add that to the role handbook for the release team.
Maybe I can ask a question. Is there some, I don't know what people are good at here. I know a bunch of people are good at contributing excellent technical documentation, but maybe there's someone who's links, actually, I don't know anything about these reference docs, but I do know, Golang, or, this is the sort of reference generation is right up my street. And yet you're thinking, yeah, but I don't know the whole story, so I couldn't help. If that's how you're feeling, I want to hear, because maybe we can help you. Anyone?
I don't know the docs very well, and I don't know the API spec, but I do. I mean, I know it enough as a user, but I do know Go, so maybe that's handy.
That's incredibly handy. And what a
All right, cool.
coincidence! And you're leading the upcoming release.
I am. Oh yes, I am. That's right.
Surprise!
So maybe, yeah, maybe I can work with others, and we can make this a little smoother for future teams.
I would
Tools are
love
always
to
good.
use containers as a technology to package up the reference generation and make that happen in a container rather than on a contributor's, well, still on a contributor's PC, but moving it into a container enables a bunch of future work and fits in very well with our cloud native philosophy. So if you would feel like you could help with that, Jesse, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, that's up my alley for sure.
That would be great. There are many dependencies you have to install. So can move
Yeah,
it into
so-
container would be great.
Again, yeah, exactly. All right, great. Well, yeah, Tim, if you could, sort of give me a roadmap and point at the forest fires, then I'll do what I can to navigate the trees.
I will try to point you at the forest and introduce you to
Yes.
people who have got lost there.
I thought you were gonna say you're gonna introduce him to the fires.
Just either of those works as well. That's great. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks, Ray, for bringing that up. I've got you there driving this, and it sounds like we have some folks involved for a solution. So that's great. All right. Any other things that folks want to discuss before moving on to this other section that I recently added? Cool. So moving on, this other section, it didn't really fit quite in the discussion or issues and PRs, just things I thought was worth bringing up. The very first thing is I want to apologize to the SIG Docs community, like seriously, just because I started to, or for some of those that know, I've said I'm going to upload the meeting videos for probably a month or so now. I didn't realize until looking last night, we don't have updated videos dating back to February. And so that's just not a responsible action as a co-chair, and that's not an acceptable behavior. And I'm surprised someone hasn't nudged me sooner. I guess it shows how many people really care about the videos getting uploaded. But no, speaking personally though, I do reference these videos. I do go back and I watch them. Obviously, I haven't done it since February, but when there's a meeting I miss, it's great to grab context. So for example, as Paris and I are switching between hosts, it's great to grab context from a meeting that I missed and being able to jump in and watch that previous meeting. So we got here because the automation is broken that uploads the videos, but still that's no excuse to have videos dating back all the way to February that we're delayed on. So once, it's kind of one of those things that started as a small thing and now is a big thing. And so I'm apologizing for that. But now we're dealing with the problems of having around 28 total videos we need to upload. And YouTube has a 15 video upload limit. There's a 24-hour cycle. And so right now I'm uploading those videos. I got them all downloaded. I'm in the process of currently transitioning those onto YouTube. But I did want to sincerely apologize to the folks and for folks that rely on asynchronous communication through these videos. So once again, it's really unacceptable behavior, but we're making it right. And then the next item here is the meeting notes. I believe some other folks in the community may have volunteered to do this. And so I apologize if I was cookie licking or stepping on any toes, but we converted the 2020 meeting minutes into Markdown. There's an instruction set in the community documentation, which I can link in the agenda. The idea is after a year of SIG Docs meetings, the Google Doc gets to be so long and lengthy, it doesn't make sense to continue building on that same doc. So usually annually, we will take that year block from January 1st to the end of the year. We would convert it to Markdown using a Google Doc plugin, and then we commit it to the community repository. There's instructions in the community repository on how to do that. I did that for the 2020 meeting minutes. Everything is good there, but I just wanted to bring that up for awareness. And then the last thing here, I didn't know if this has been happening or if it's the first time I saw it. With Chrome version 92, if you open up a Netlify preview window for a PR, there's now these Chrome security warnings that say like, hey, did you really mean to go to this website? It looks like you really wanted to go to kubernetes.io. And as the first time coming across that, it looks like when you hit a page with a invalid SSL, it goes completely white. It kind of looks a little scary. It has a little warning on it. You sure you want to do this type thing? And I'm raising awareness because if other folks see this or it becomes an issue, we might want to document this either in our README, or we might want to find a solution here on how we don't have that kind of scary message of you look like you're getting hijacked by Kubernetes, even though you just opened a PR. Has anyone else seen that? Okay.
Yeah, I have. It looks like Shannon has too.
Nice. Okay. Cool. So yeah, just raising awareness there, and just if we start seeing more of it, we know how to respond to it. Maybe there's another option as well. Nate?
If I can just hop back to your markdown note, if there's no comments about your Chrome warning.
Yep, go for it.
I've seen a couple of other projects use a site called hackmd.io, and it looks like it's sort of a Google Docs style a tool that can connect to a repo, and it has, when I say Google Docs style, I mean multiple people can hack on it at the same time, and it is in Markdown to begin with. So that might be, rather than using Google Docs to begin with and then converting, it might be worthwhile to explore other tools that might be able to generate documentation that is immediately able to be put into a repo. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, no, it's a great suggestion. And I personally love hackmd.io. It's a great solution for writing in Markdown. I use it when I'm writing personal blog posts, or whenever I'm writing in Markdown. I track a lot of notes in there. I find it to be a great resource. I know Contribex was looking at converting all the special interest groups to using hackmd. I want to say that George Castro is leading that, and George Castro stepped away into other responsibilities. So I don't know where that's at. There's nothing really stopping SIG Docs from adopting their own note-taking strategy, but it's definitely something worth consideration. I guess, do folks have any comments or questions around leveraging hackmd versus Google Docs? Tim?
I wonder how well hackmd works with some of the more esoteric things like we use, like shortcodes. Will that be a road bump for contributors when the page they're editing has a Hugo shortcode in it? Does anyone know?
I think it would really, I want to make sure I answer this. You said Hugo shortcode. Are you talking about in the meeting agenda?
Oh, so you're really just talking for the meeting agenda?
Correct.
Okay. Not for just like converting SIG Docs to it. I think I heard converting SIG Docs to it and thinking, okay, wow.
No, I meant only for the meeting notes. That'd be a bit much.
Yep. Yeah, it's strictly for the meeting minutes, and that would just save you the extra step, like Nate pointed out. As far as doing the Google Docs Markdown conversion, it's already in Markdown, copy and paste, and you're good to go.
It would also, I think, probably help searchability, because right now, if it's in Google Docs, that's not necessarily going to show up in searches where having it publicly in the repo might be valuable there.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. I see a couple of +1s in chat as well. Appreciate you bringing that up, Nate. I really don't know how really we'd move that forward. I think we should definitely keep this in consideration, but let's kind of see how things unfold here. And if there is an effort to go towards hackmd, let's do it. I'll check in with SIG Contribex as well and see if there's any interest at unifying that effort as well. Cool. That is all I had for the agenda. Does anybody else have anything else that they would like to discuss or bring up before we close out?
Hey, so clarification. Okay, so I think I saw the schedule and there's a talk Wednesday afternoon around dinner time. Did I see that? K8S SIG Docs?
I haven't looked at the schedule, honestly. I don't know if anyone else has confirmed that. But yeah, I would imagine if you saw on the SCHED website, that's probably accurate for the SIG Docs conference or the talk.
Okay.
Yeah, it's that Wednesday in the afternoon.
Okay, and this is separate from the contributor maintainer day zero
Yep.
effort.
Yeah, and so that's a good clarification, and I'll just kind of reiterate here is that there is a official KubeCon talk as part of the maintainers track where we sit there and present what SIG Docs is doing, kind of a call to action, a call to help. It's a deep dive into SIG Docs, really meant for any sort of consumption, new contributors, folks who are dabbling in documentation. Anyone who's attending the conference can really just watch the video or attend that session. The contributor summit is really focused on contributors, and it's really about the nitty gritty of running the documentation sprints, doing the technical deep dives, and it's focused all around empowering and growing contributors. So the difference being folks who are attending KubeCon don't always have to be a contributor, whereas Contributor Summit is really going to be focused on contributions. Does that help clarify?
Yes, it does.
Cool. Anything else? Nate?
Maybe we don't have time to discuss it this round, but we've got a lot of valuable links and conversation in our chat. And I find that with Zoom, the chat, even if we record the video, the chat tends to be quite ephemeral. And I was wondering if there was a way that we could not necessarily catch the chat verbatim, but capturing some of the links and whatnot.
I will pin them in
as-
Slack.
Oh, can you actually pin them? Oh, I see
I'm
what
going
you're
to
saying.
copy
Yeah.
them into Slack and pin them.
Cool. Yeah, that'd be a huge help. Thanks for bringing that up, Nate, and thanks, Tim. The other comment I would have is that when you record a meeting in Zoom to the cloud, it does give you a text layout of the chat, of the at least the public chat. So we do have record of it. The challenge is normally when I go into Zoom, I download the video. It's going to be the actual video we upload to YouTube. There's really not much I feel like I can do with that. But I do want to raise visibility that if someone's like, oh shoot, there was something in the chat 2 weeks ago or last night, you know, and I want to reference it, there is record of the chat and it is available in Zoom that co-chairs and tech leads have access to capturing. But yeah, Tim, if you don't mind putting that as a pin, that'd be fantastic. Cool. Anything else? All right, that's a SIG meeting. I appreciate y'all taking the time, and I'll catch y'all later.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.
Take care.